The rain-slicked streets of Manhattan gleamed under the sodium lamps as Maren stepped out of the gala, her husband's arm heavy around her waist like a chain disguised as affection. In the pocket of her coat, hidden from the flashing cameras and envious whispers, burned a single photograph she'd stolen from a forgotten drawer. Riley's face, frozen in laughter. Eyes that once promised forever now accusing her of betrayal with every glance. Everyone called it the perfect marriage. But tonight, as Ethan's laughter echoed hollow in the limo, Maren wondered if perfection was just another word for prison. Maren Whitaker had always been the woman who had it all. 35. She was the vice president of a boutique PR firm in Midtown, the kind that polished celebrities and smoothed scandals for the elite. Her office overlooked Bryant Park, where she could watch joggers blur past in the early morning fog, their lives unscripted and free. She lived in a Tribeca loft with exposed brick walls and floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the Hudson like a painting she no longer appreciated. Ethan, her husband of 8 years, was the tech wunderkind whose app had turned commuting nightmares into seamless rides, netting him a fortune that bought them weekends in the Hamptons and holidays in Aspen. Their wedding had been splashed across New York Magazine, the power couple redefining modern love. Friends envied the ease of it, the brunches at Balthazar, the charity balls where Ethan charmed donors and Maren sealed deals with a smile. Strangers on Instagram scrolled through their feeds, hearts heavy with longing for that glossy facade. But beneath the veneer, Maren carried a fracture line no one saw. Started 12 years ago, in a cramped coffee shop off Washington Square, where the air smelled of burnt espresso and ambition. She was 23 then, fresh out of NYU with a journalism degree she traded for PR gigs because dreams paid in ramen, not rent. Riley Hayes crashed into her life like a rogue wave, 24, with cropped auburn hair that caught the light like autumn leaves, freckles dusting her nose like constellations, and a laugh that pulled secrets from Maren's guarded heart. Riley was a photographer, the kind who chased stories in shadowed alleys and forgotten boroughs, her camera slung over one shoulder like a weapon against the ordinary. They met when Maren spilled her latte across Riley's table, soaking a stack of prints from her latest exhibit. "Oh God. I'm so sorry," Maren stammered, blotting at the images with napkins that only smeared the ink. Riley looked up, green eyes sparkling with mischief, not anger. "Hey, if my art survives coffee, it might just survive the world." That was the hook, the way Riley saw beauty in the mess, turned accident into invitation. They talked for hours that afternoon, Maren confessing her fear of fading into corporate anonymity, Riley sharing tales of hitchhiking across the Midwest to capture ghost towns swallowed by cornfields. By dusk, they were walking the village hand in hand, fingers laced like they'd always known the fit. Their love unfolded in stolen moments. Rooftop picnics in Brooklyn with skyline silhouettes as witnesses. Midnight drives upstate where Riley pulled over to photograph deer grazing under moonlight. Maren curled against her in the passenger seat, heart swelling with a fullness she'd never known. Riley's touch was electric, fingertips tracing Maren's collarbone in the dim light of her Bushwick loft. Whispers of "you're my anchor" against sweat-damp skin. Maren, who had dated men in college out of habit more than heat, discovered in Riley a truth that reshaped her. Love wasn't a script to follow, but a fire to chase. They built a world of their own, fragile and fierce, Riley's photos lining the walls, Maren's notes scribbled on takeout menus planning their future. But the world doesn't bend for quiet revolutions. Ethan's arrival was a slow poison. He was Maren's client first, a venture capitalist with a disarming grin and promises of stability. "You're wasting your fire on her," he said one night at a networking event, after Maren had let slip a vague mention of a friend over drinks. Ethan wooed her with dinners at Le Bernardin, where lobster tasted like ambition, and weekends in his Hamptons beach house, where the waves whispered of escape. Riley saw it coming: the late nights, the excuses, the way Maren's calls grew shorter, laced with guilt. "You're choosing safety over soul," Riley accused one rainy evening in her loft, voice cracking like thunder. Maren, tears streaming, couldn't deny it. "I don't know how to be this version of me in the light of day." She left that night, the door clicking shut like a sentence. The wedding came 6 months later, a spectacle of white orchids and string quartets in the New York Public Library. Maren walked down the aisle in silk that clung like regret, Ethan's eyes gleaming with victory. Riley didn't come, but a single envelope arrived days before, a print of them on that rooftop, backs to the camera, arms entwined against the city lights. On the back, in Riley's looping script, "Our story isn't over. It's just paused." Maren hid it in a drawer, buried under tax forms and forgotten invitations, and tried to build a life on the ashes. Years blurred into a rhythm of board meetings and benefit galas. Ethan grew distant, his app consuming him, their bed a vast, cool expanse. Maren threw herself into work, crafting narratives for others while hers frayed at the edges. She volunteered at a women's shelter in Harlem, listening to stories of fractured hearts, wondering if hers was just another echo. Friends like Lila, her college roommate turned gallery curator, probed gently over wine at employees only. "You light up when you talk about the city." "Not him," Maren deflected with laughs. But the fracture widened. Then came the journalist Alex Rivera, a hungry 28-year-old from the Village Voice, chasing scandals in the glitter of high society. Alex had a nose for the buried, honed on stories of Wall Street whispers and Hollywood hush money. It started with a tip, an anonymous email with a grainy photo from Ethan's holiday party, Maren staring at her phone with an expression that screamed secrets. Alex dug, following digital breadcrumbs to a storage unit in Queens, leased under Maren's maiden name. Inside, amid boxes of old manuscripts and winter coats, lay a cache of prints, Riley's work, but also their shared history, Polaroids of tangled sheets in a Catskills cabin, notes scrawled on subway maps, and that rooftop shot, faded but unflinching. The article dropped on a Tuesday morning, headline screaming across digital billboards: "The Whitaker Facade. Hidden photos reveal VP's secret lesbian romance." Maren was in a client meeting when her phone buzzed. Once, twice, a swarm. Ethan's face appeared on the conference line, pale as ash. "What the hell is this?" The room emptied in whispers, leaving Maren alone with the screen, Alex's byline mocking her from the glow. The photos were there, splashed in high-res, Riley's face, their hands intertwined, a kiss blurred but unmistakable under Central Park lamplight. Comments flooded in: shock from colleagues, pity from acquaintances, venom from trolls. Fraud. Betrayer. Poor Ethan. Maren fled to the loft, locking the door against the paparazzi drones humming like vengeful bees. Ethan arrived hours later, scotch in hand, voice low and lethal. "How long? Maren, how long have you been lying?" She wanted to scream that it wasn't a lie. It was her truth, buried to survive. Instead, she whispered, "Since before you," and watched his world crack. He didn't rage, that would have been kinder. He packed a bag with mechanical precision, leaving the rooftop photo on the kitchen island like a gauntlet. Fix this, or we're done. Alone in the echoing space, Maren pulled out her phone, fingers trembling as she typed Riley's name into the search bar. The first hit, an obituary, dated 3 months prior. Riley Hayes, 36, artist and activist, lost to ovarian cancer after a quiet battle. A small gallery show in Chelsea marked her passing, intimate, raw, the kind Riley would have hated for its sentiment. Maren sank to the floor. The city noise a distant roar. Grief crashing over her like the wave she'd once chased with the woman who'd taught her to feel. The photos weren't just scandal, they were ghosts, demanding she face the life she'd half-lived. In the days that followed, the storm raged. Sponsors pulled from her firm. Lila called with apologies laced in curiosity. And Alex Rivera left voicemails seeking her side. Maren ignored them all, retreating to the shelter where the women's stories grounded her. There was Jade, a trans woman rebuilding after violence, who said over lukewarm tea, "Truth don't come cheap, but silence costs your soul." Maren nodded, the words carving deeper than any headline. One evening, as dusk painted the Harlem streets in bruised purples, Maren found herself at the Chelsea Gallery. The show was titled Unpaused, Riley's Final Collection, images of fractured light through cracked windows, lovers' shadows on rain-streaked glass. In the corner, a video installation looped. Riley's voice, soft and steady, narrating her diagnosis. "Cancer took my body, but not my fire. Love? That's the real thief." Maren stood transfixed, tears carving silent paths, until a hand touched her shoulder. It was Sam, Riley's younger sister, 32 with the same green eyes, now rimmed in loss. "You came." Not accusation, just fact. They talked in the empty space after closing, Sam sharing stories of Riley's last months, the way she'd sorted photos, labeling boxes with names. "Maren, keep these safe." Sam pulled an envelope from her bag, sealed with wax. "She wanted you to have this. Said it was your map home." Inside letters, yellowed and folded, chronicling their years apart. Riley's words wove through time, forgiveness for the leaving, pride in Maren's rise, a quiet ache that never faded. "I waited for you to remember who you are. Not the wife, not the exec. You, with the wild heart." The final page, a sketch of that rooftop, 2 figures eternal against the stars. Maren left the gallery shattered, but something ignited, a spark long banked. She confronted Ethan over dinner at their club, the clink of silverware a mocking underscore. "I can't fix us because we were never real." He stared, then nodded. The divorce papers drawn by Dawn. The firm let her go quietly, a severance check for silence she wouldn't buy. Freed, Maren chased the map. She drove to Vermont, Riley's childhood home, a clapboard house nestled in green hills where maples turn fiery in fall. Sam welcomed her with coffee black as regret, sharing albums of Riley's youth, girl with a camera, chasing fireflies, dreaming of cities that didn't break her. They hiked the trails Riley loved, Maren spilling her confessions to the wind, the fear that had chained her, the love that had saved her too late. Back in New York, Alex Rivera waited at a corner table in a Soho cafe, notebook open like a confessional. Maren sat, voice steady. "Those photos? They're not scandal. They're my becoming. The follow-up piece ran weeks later. From facade to freedom, Marin's unscripted truth didn't erase the scars, but it shifted the narrative from envy to empathy. Months turned to a year. Marin started her own consultancy, small but hers, focused on authentic voices, queer creators, women reclaiming stories. She mentored at the shelter, watched Jade bloom into advocacy. Lila curated a show of Riley's work, Marin contributing essays that bled honesty onto the page. On quiet nights, she climbed to the loft's roof, hers alone now, and traced constellations, Riley's laugh echoing in the breeze. One crisp October evening, as leaves swirled like confetti, Marin stood at Washington Square, latte in hand, eyes on the arch. A woman bumped her table, spilling foam across prints of urban grit. Oh God. I'm so. Their eyes met, and Marin smiled, handing a napkin. If it survives coffee, it might just survive the world. In that moment, she felt Riley's ghost nod approval. Life wasn't perfect, but it was hers, raw, real, unpaused. The archway loomed like a promise unkept, but Marin lingered anyway. The spill forgotten as the stranger laughed, a sound bright and unburdened, cutting through the autumn chill. Her name was Theo, short for Theodora, a painter from Austin transplanting her chaos to the village for a residency at the new school. Pretty, with sun-kissed skin from Texas hills, dark curls tied in a loose knot, and eyes like polished onyx that held stories of dusty roads and midnight canvases. They talked until the park emptied, Theo's brushstrokes mirroring Riley's lens, both capturing the unseen poetry in cracked sidewalks and hurried faces. Marin didn't rush it. After years of scripted affection, she savored the slow burn, coffee dates that stretched into walks along the High Line, where rusted rails whispered of industrial ghosts. Theo shared sketches from her portfolio, women in repose, limbs tangled like vines, colors bleeding emotion onto paper. Art's my confession, she said one evening. Charcoal smudged on her cheek as they sat on a bench overlooking the Hudson. Marin traced the line of her jaw with a gaze, not a touch, and murmured, "Mine's been buried too long." Vulnerability hung between them, fragile as fog off the river. But freedom came with barbs. The divorce finalized in a sterile courthouse on Center Street, Ethan signing with a pen that scratched like accusation. He kept the loft. She took a walk up in the East Village, third floor with creaky stairs and a fire escape that overlooked a courtyard of potted herbs and strung lights. The move felt like shedding skin. Boxes unpacked to reveal Riley's prints, now framed on shiplap walls, guardians against the empty corners. Ethan called once, voice clipped over the line from his new place in Soho. "You happy now? With your truth?" Marin paused, the city hum filling the silence. "Happier than I was pretending." He hung up without goodbye. But the weight lifted, inch by inch. Lila threw a housewarming, the kind that spilled laughter and Merlot onto fire escapes, neighbors peering over railings with curious smiles. Jade arrived with a plant that thrived on neglect. "Like us," she grinned, hugging Marin tight. Sam flew in from Vermont, her presence a bridge to the past, sharing a quiet toast with Theo in the kitchen. "Riley would have liked her fire," Sam whispered later, as they washed glasses under the sink's drip. Marin nodded, throat tight. "She taught me to seek it." Work bloomed in the cracks. Marin's consultancy, Whitaker Voices, started with a single client, a non-binary author penning memoirs of rural queer survival in Montana's wide skies. They met in a Williamsburg cafe, rain pattering the windows like impatient fingers. "I need someone who gets the hiding," the author said, voice low. Maren leaned in, sharing fragments of her own unraveling. The book launched to quiet acclaim. Panels at Book Expo where Maren moderated, her words weaving authenticity into the ether. Clients trickled in, filmmakers from Sundance, poets from open mics in the Bowery, each story a mirror to her healing. Theo wove in deeper, their rhythm a gentle tide. One weekend, they drove to the Catskills, the same cabin from Maren's Polaroids, now rented through an app that promised disconnection. Leaves carpeted the path in crimson and gold, crunching under boots as they hiked to a overlook where mist clung to valleys like secrets. Theo unpacked her easel at dusk, painting the haze while Maren read Riley's letters aloud, voice carrying on the wind. "She sounds like she knew you'd find this," Theo said, brush pausing. Maren set the pages down, pulling Theo close, their kiss tasting of pine and possibility, soft at first, then deepening. A reclamation. Nights in the cabin blurred boundaries, bodies exploring in flannel sheets. Theo's fingers mapping Maren's scars, literal from a childhood fall, metaphorical from years of silence. "Tell me what hurts," Theo whispered, lips against collarbone. Maren did, words tumbling like stones from a dam, the guilt of leaving Riley, the terror of Ethan's world, the envy she'd felt for couples who loved without apology. Theo listened, not fixing, just holding, her own confession spilling in return. A coming out in Austin bars where beer bottles shattered like judgments. A lover lost to wanderlust who never looked back. Back in the city, shadows lingered. Alex Rivera's piece had opened doors, but also drawn wolves. A tabloid ran a hit piece, digging into Ethan's humiliation, painting Maren as the villain who traded vows for vice. Hate mail arrived, envelopes thick with bile, emails laced with slurs that Jade helped her delete over late-night ice cream. "They're scared of what you represent," Jade said, spoon waving like a wand. Maren nodded, but doubt crept in. Nights when the fire escape felt too exposed. Theo's warmth not quite chasing the chill. The turning point came at a fundraiser for the shelter. A glittering affair in a flatiron loft with chandeliers dripping light like honey. Maren spoke, voice steady under the gaze of donors in tailored suits. "We don't save women. We remind them they're whole." Applause rippled. But backstage, Ethan waited, champagne flute in hand, eyes hard as marble. "Bold move. Using our mess for your brand." Maren stiffened, the old fracture throbbing. "It was never ours. It was mine to bury, mine to unearth." He stepped closer, breath sour with scotch. "You think this makes you brave? You're just another cliché, midlife crisis in heels." The words landed like slaps. But Theo appeared then, hand firm on Maren's arm, pulling her away. "Walk with me," she said. And they did. Out into the night where stars fought the city's glow. On the subway home, rattling through tunnels, Maren broke. "What if he's right? What if I'm chasing ghosts instead of living?" Theo cupped her face, thumbs brushing tears. "Riley's not a ghost, she's your compass. And I'm here. Not as replacement, but as now." They emerged at Astor Place, the cube sculpture spinning lazy revolutions, and Maren kissed her fears, tasting salt and steel. Winter descended soft, snow blanketing the village in hush. Maren and Theo built rituals. Mornings tangled in the walk-up. Coffee brewing as sunlight slanted through blinds. Evenings at Theo's studio in a converted warehouse, where paint flecked the floor like fallen stars. Sam visited again, bringing Riley's camera, a vintage Leica, lens scratched from adventures. "She'd want you to see through it," Sam said. And Maren did, framing shots of Theo at work. Her focus a quiet storm. But healing isn't linear. It loops, doubling back on tender feet. One February morning, a call from Ethan's lawyer. Settlement disputes. Assets tangled like weeds. Maren met him in a midtown office. Glass walls reflecting her resolve. "Take it all," she said, signing away the loft's equity. "Money bought silence once." "Not anymore." He blinked, then softened. A crack in the armor. "I loved you. In my way." Maren met his eyes. Pity blooming unexpected. "I know. But my way was different." Spring unfurled green. Cherry blossoms dusting the park like confetti from a wedding long past. Maren's consultancy thrived. A team now, Jada's outreach lead. Lila handling arts collabs. They hosted a workshop series, Unscripted Lives, drawing queer women from boroughs wide. Stories shared in circles. Tears and triumphs mingling like threads in a tapestry. Theo's residency ended with a show at the new museum. Canvases pulsing with urban heartbeats. Figures emerging from shadows. Hands reaching without fear. Maren hung the opening night photo. Her and Theo, arms linked. Riley's camera capturing the unguarded joy. Critics called it a manifesto in pigment, but to Maren, it was home. Summer hummed in. Fireflies in the courtyard mimicking the lights strung above. On the solstice, they climbed the fire escape. Blankets and wine in tow. City sprawling below like a lover sated. Theo leaned into Maren, head on shoulder. "What's next for us?" Maren traced the skyline. Riley's words echoing faint. "Our story isn't over. Whatever we paint it," she replied. And kissed her slow. The world blurring to just this. Yet in quiet hours, Maren wondered at the cost. The envy turned to exile. The marriage a monument to what she'd almost lost. But loss had carved space for this. Love not borrowed, but bone deep. Everyone had envied her cage. Now, they whispered of her wings. The heat wave gripped New York like a fever dream. Asphalt shimmering in waves that distorted the horizon, turning taxis into mirages. Maren and Theo escaped to the Rockaways, a rented bungalow on the edge where dunes met surf. The ocean's roar a bomb against the city's ceaseless pulse. They arrived at dusk, sand gritty underfoot, unpacking coolers of craft beer and baskets of farmers' market peaches that burst juice down chins when bitten. Theo set up her easel on the porch, capturing the tide's retreat in broad strokes of cerulean and foam white, while Maren lounged in a hammock, Riley's Leica around her neck. Snapping candid frames. Theo's brow furrowed in concentration. Salt wind tousling her curls. Nights cooled to whispers. The bungalow's screen door creaking as they moved from porch to bed. Bodies slick with sunscreen and sea. Theo's touch was patient. Exploratory fingers following the curve of Maren's spine. Lips mapping freckles earned from afternoons baking under the July sun. "Your poetry in motion," Theo murmured once. As they lay tangled in sheets that smelled of salt and linen. Maren laughed soft, tracing Theo's tattoo. A compass rose inked on her ribcage. Needle from a Austin parlor on her 21st birthday. "You keep me directed, but in the dark." Doubts surfaced like driftwood. Was this love? Or just the echo of what she'd lost? Riley's letters, tucked in the nightstand, offered no easy answers, only reminders that love demanded risk. Back in the city, the consultancy hit stride. Whitaker Voices secured a grant from the Ford Foundation, funding a podcast series, Echoes Unheard, amplifying voices from the margins, lesbian ranchers in Wyoming's vast plains, trans elders in Chicago's South Side tenements. Marin hosted the first episode in a makeshift studio above a Nolita bookstore. Mic in hand, heart pounding like a drum. Jade co-produced, her laugh cutting tension during edits. Lila guest-edited scripts, infusing literary grace. Listeners trickled in, then surged, DMs flooding with thanks. You said what I couldn't. Ethan resurfaced in autumn, unannounced at a book launch in Strand, towering shelves witnesses to his awkward approach. Cleaner shaven, eyes softer around the edges. He held a copy of the non-binary author's memoir, spine creased from reading. I get it now, he said over the murmur of browsers. Voice low. The hiding. My father. He never let me be anything but the heir. Marin blinked. The revelation a bridge she'd not expected. They talked for an hour in the rare books room, dust motes dancing in slanted light, sharing the wreckage of their shared past. No reconciliation, but a truce. Coffee months later at a neutral spot in Union Square, where he admitted dating a graphic designer named Kai. Someone who sees me. Not the app. Marin smiled genuine, the knot in her chest loosening. To new chapters. Theo's show toured to San Francisco. A 2-week whirlwind of gallery openings and fog-drenched walks along the Embarcadero. Marin tagged along, the consultancy on pause. Her first true vacation in years. They rode cable cars up Nob Hill, wind-whipping skirts. Theo's hand warm in hers amid tourists oblivious to their story. At a dive bar in the Mission, murals exploding color on stucco walls, they danced to a mariachi band, bodies swaying to horns that blared defiance. This is us, Theo shouted over the din, spinning Marin under neon glow. Later, in a Haight-Ashbury B&B with clawfoot tubs, they soaked in lavender suds, Theo's fingers weaving through wet hair. Promise me we'll chase more of this. Marin leaned back, water lapping. Every horizon, but crack spiderweb even in paradise. A call from Sam Midtour. Riley's estate settled. A box of unsorted negatives arriving at Marin's door. Back in New York, Marin developed them in a darkroom rented by the hour in Dumbo. Chemicals sharp in her nostrils. Red light casting everything in blood hue. Images emerged like specters. Riley in hospice. Frail but fierce. Grinning at the lens held by a nurse. Marin herself. Younger. Asleep on a park bench. Riley's shadow falling protective. The last roll. Blank exposures. Riley's final joke. Shooting the void. Because what's next is light. Grief hit anew. A rogue wave in the shower. Sobs mingling with steam until Theo pulled her down. Rocking like a child. She lives in you, Theo said. Voice steady anchor. Marin clung, whispering thanks. The moment forging them tighter. Winter brought expansion. Whitaker Voices opened a satellite in Austin, Theo's hometown. A nod to roots. Marin flew down for the launch. Cowboy boots borrowed from Lila. The air thick with barbecue smoke and live oak shade. Jade charmed locals at a honky-tonk mixer. Her stories drawing a crowd of wide-eyed transplants. Ethan even Skyped in a toast. his face pixelated but sincere. Proud of you, Marin. Really? The words landed soft. A full circle. Spring 2027 bloomed riotous. Tulips rioting in Union Square planters. Marin and Theo adopted a rescue mutt from the shelter, Lola, a wiry terrier with one ear flopped. Boundless energy chasing squirrels in Tompkins Square. Mornings became walks at dawn. Leash taut. Coffee steaming in thermoses. The city stirring awake around them. Family, Theo said one day, tossing a stick into the grass. Lola bounding after. Marin watched, heart full to bursting. Hours. The high came crashing at the consultancy's first anniversary gala. A rooftop affair in the meatpacking district. String lights twinkling like captured stars. Donors mingled with clients. Jade emceeing with flair. Lila unveiling a mural of woven narratives. Marin, in an emerald gown that hugged like a promise, scanned the crowd for Theo late from a critique. Then, a murmur rippled, heads turning to the entrance. Alex Rivera strode in, notebook tucked under arm. But not alone, trailing her, face pale under makeup, was a woman Marin hadn't seen in 15 years, Claire. Riley's ex from college. The one who'd introduced them at that fateful coffee shop. Claire approached, eyes glassy with wine or tears, voice a hiss under the jazz quartet. You think you're the heroine? Riley died alone because of you. Your cowardice poisoned everything. The words detonated. Guests pretending not to hear as Marin reeled. Old guilt surging like bile. Claire thrust a USB drive into her hand. Proof, she spat before storming out. Heels clicking judgment. Theo arrived minutes later. Sensing the fracture. Pulling Marin to a quiet corner behind potted palms. What happened? Marin handed the drive. Trembling. They plugged it into a laptop in the venue's office. Files unfolding. Emails from Riley's final months. Fragments to Claire. Laced with regret. Marin was my son. But she chose shade. Don't let love eclipse you. Not accusation. But echo Riley's grace even in pain. Marin crumpled. The gala's cheer mocking from beyond the door. Theo held her through the night. Back in the walk-up. Lola nosing worried paws against shins. Dawn brought clarity. Claire's anger was her own unhealed wound. Not Marin's chain. She called Sam. Voice raw over the line. Tell me about Claire. Sam sighed. The rustle of Vermont quilts. She visited Riley near the end. Stirred old pots. But Riley? She spoke of you with light. Always. Forgiveness started small. A letter to Claire. Unsent at first. Then mailed to a P.O. box in Portland. I can't undo the pain. But I honor her by living true. No reply came. But the sending freed something. A valve released. Summer healed in layers. Marin and Theo road tripped the Pacific Coast Highway. Top down on a rented Mustang. Wind a symphony of release. Stops in Big Sur. Cliffside hikes where hawks wheeled. Beaches where seals barked lazy warnings. They scattered Riley's ashes, a pinch from Sam's care, into the surf at Pfeiffer. Waves claiming what the earth released. To unpaused, Theo toasted with a thermos of mezcal. Arms around Marin as foam-licked toes. Fall brought harvest. The podcast won a Webby. Jade's face beaming on stage in L.A. Marin cheering from the crowd. Ethan's app pivoted to inclusive features. A quiet nod to their truce. Theo proposed collaboration, a joint exhibit. Photos and paintings entwined. Titled Intersections. Winter Solstice. They gathered friends on the roof, Lila, Jake, Sam via video, even Ethan with Kai in tow. Fire pit crackling. Stories circling like smoke. Maren raised a glass. Eyes on Theo across the flames. To the women who loved me into being. Cheers rose. And in that warmth, Maren knew. Envy was the cage of others' making. Her marriage had been admired for its shine. Her life now, for its depth. The new year dawned crisp. Resolutions whispered into the ether like secrets to the wind. Maren woke to Theo's sketchpad open on the kitchen table. A half-finished portrait of her sleeping form, lines soft, shadows intimate. Lola pawed at the door, tail thumping impatient rhythm, and they bundled into coats for a ramble through snow-dusted Washington Square. Children built lopsided forts, their giggles piercing the cold, while buskers strummed covers of Joni Mitchell, voices raw against the chill. "This is my favorite version of us," Theo said, linking pinkies as they passed the arch, breath clouding in tandem. Whitaker voices expanded again. A Brooklyn outpost in a Bed-Stuy brownstone with murals by local artists, vibrant queer icons splashed across facade, drawing foot traffic and funders alike. Maren hired Elena, a sharp-witted Latina from Queens with a law degree and a fire for policy, to helm advocacy. Together, they lobbied at City Hall, corridors echoing with heels and hush deals, pushing for expanded shelter funding. Jade thrived as director, her vision turning the Harlem space into a hub, art therapy rooms where survivors painted their escapes, legal clinics buzzing with pro bono fire. Theo's exhibit with Maren opened in spring at a Soho space, white walls humming with anticipation. Intersections drew crowds, curators from MoMA, bloggers snapping for feeds, old clients nodding recognition. Riley's Leica shots hung beside Theo's oils, a diptych of hands, one pair callous from camera straps, the other paint-flecked, interlaced against faded denim. The catalog essay, penned by Maren, wove their threads, love as lens, as brushstroke, revealing what words evade. Opening night, Lila poured champagne flutes, toasting to collisions that create. Ethan arrived late, Kai on arm, lingering at the pieces with a thoughtful squint. "Beautiful work," he murmured to Maren, and meant it. But beneath the bloom, undercurrents stirred. Claire's silence stretched, a taut string humming unease. Then, in May, an email terse, from a throwaway address. Saw the show. Riley would have hated the commodification. Meet me. Portland. June. Attached. A scan of Riley's journal. Page dog-eared. Words in looping script. Maren's leaving broke me open. Claire tries to mend. But it's not the same fit. Maren stared at the screen. Coffee cooling untouched. The journal's intimacy a violation and a gift. She went alone. Theo understanding with a kiss at JFK. Come back whole. The flight to Portland was turbulent. Mirroring her gut, clouds boiling like regrets. Claire met her at a Pearl District cafe. Hipster haven with exposed beams and pour-over steaming aromatic. 40 now. Hair streaked silver. Eyes shadowed by loss. Claire slid a latte across the scarred oak table. I came to bury the hatchet. Or sharpen it. They talked halting. Words stumbling over thorns. Claire's own loves fractured post-Riley. A string of flings chasing the ghost. Her visits to the hospice. Holding Riley's hand as machines beeped dirge. She forgave you before she forgave herself, Claire said, voice cracking on the last. Maren reached across, tentative, their fingers brushing a truce in touch. They walked the Willamette waterfront after, bridges arching like aspirations, sharing Riley anecdotes until dusk painted the river gold. She loved fiercely because she knew time's thief, Claire said, hugging goodbye at the airport shuttle. Don't waste yours. Homeward. Maren felt lighter. The journal page folded in her wallet like a talisman. Theo waited with takeout from Mamoon's falafel crisp, tahini dripping, and Lola's enthusiastic leaps. Over plates balanced on knees, Maren recounted, tears salting the hummus. It's not absolution, but it's peace. Theo pulled her close, murmuring into hair. You've earned it. Every shard. Summer swelled humid. The city a steam bath of ambition and asphalt. Maren and Theo hosted a retreat upstate. Whitaker Voices team plus artists. Cabins clustered by a lake. Mornings of yoga on dew-kissed docks. Afternoons free-writing under maples. Jade led trust falls that dissolved into laughter. Elena facilitated panels on intersectional feminism, Black, Latina, queer voices harmonizing. Evenings around bonfires. Stories crackled like embers. Theo sharing her Austin youth. Dodging Confederate flags at pride parades. Maren reading from Riley's letters. Voice weaving legacy into night. Fall brought harvest moons and milestones. The podcast hit 100 episodes. A live recording at the Apollo Theater. House packed with fans chanting Jade's intro. Maren watched from wings. Pride swelling chest tight. Ethan proposed to Kai at a quiet dinner. Inviting Maren as the friend who showed me how to let go. She went. Toasting in a back booth at Peter Luger. Steak sizzling approval. To messy beginnings, Kai said. Clinking glasses. And Maren laughed true. The past a companion. Not captor. November elections loomed. Tension electric in air already crisp with fallen leaves. Whitaker Voices mobilized voter drives in immigrant enclaves. Canvassers in branded tees knocking on doors from Flushing to Fordham. Maren pounded pavement in the Bronx. Clipboards heavy with registrations. Faces lighting at her pitch. Your voice. Amplified. One evening. Exhausted on a stoop. A young woman 17. Hijab framing defiant eyes whispered. You're the one from the photos. Thank you for being brave. Maren hugged her. The moment a ripple in the pond of purpose. Winter holidays dawn festive. The walk-up strung with lights that twinkled like Riley's freckles. Sam visited. Bearing Vermont cider and a quilt piece from Riley's old shirts. Flannel checks in blues and greens. They gathered. Lila with her latest paramour. A sculptor named Reese. Jade solo but radiant. Spinning tales of shelter triumphs. Theo's Austin family video calling. Drawls warm over lag. Dinner was potluck chaos. Jade's gumbo spicy as her wit. Theo's cornbread crumbly comfort. After. On the fire escape. Snow flurrying soft. Maren and Theo swayed to a portable speaker's jazz. Lola curled at feet. This is the life I chose, Maren breathed. Forehead to Theo's. Every envy-worthy bit. But choice invites challenge. In January, a donor pulled funding, conservative ties exposed by a rival firm's smear. Can't back controversy, the email read. Cold as frost. The team rallied. Crowdfunding surging via social blasts. Lila's network chipping in art auctions. Elena uncovered the rival's play, a former Ethan's associate. Grudge nurse since the divorce. Marin confronted over lunch at Aqua Grill. Oysters sharp on tongue. This isn't business, it's personal. The man smirked, then sighed. You upended his world. He misses the power. Marin left funds intact. But the scare sharpened focus, diversifying streams. Elena's policy wins, securing city grants. Spring equinox. Theo knelt in the courtyard. Ring simple. Rose gold band etched with coordinates of their first kiss. Marry me? Not for show. But for us. Marin yes-ed through tears. Lola barking confusion. Neighbors applauding from windows. Planning unfolded joyful. Small ceremony in the Rockaways. Dunes as altar. Jade officiating with vows handwritten on waves. Lila designed invites. Eucalyptus and gold foil. Sam baked the cake. Maple layers nodding to Vermont roots. Summer wedding dawn breezy. Surf sighing approval. Guests sparse but soul deep. Elena toasting resilience. Reese sketching the vows. Ethan's card arriving pre-dawn. Wishing you the truth I couldn't give. Theo in linen white. Marin in seafoam silk. They exchanged rings under a driftwood arch. Lola as ringbearer with bowtie askew. I choose you. Every dawn, Theo vowed. Voice steady C. Marin echoed. And I? You unpaused. Unbroken. Honeymoon in Oregon's coast. Cabins carved into cliffs. Whales breaching distant. They hiked tide pools. Starfish vivid as Theo's palates. Shared whispers of futures kids may be. Via donor or adoption. A home with garden for Lola's chases. Back in September. The consultancy celebrated 5 years, no. 2. But felt eternal, with a gala at the brownstone. Rooftop under stars. Donors returned. Rivals faded. Jade announced her book deal. Memoirs of Mending. Fall deep in colors. Marin pregnant? No. Not yet. Talks with clinics. Hopes tentative as seedlings. But life bloomed. Theo's solo show in Chicago. Marin curating the queer lit panel at AWP. Winter solstice again. Family grown. Fire pit stories richer. Years layered like patina on bronze. 40. Marin looked back. Not with envy for the marriage lost. But gratitude for the love found. Everyone had pitied her fall. Now. They celebrated her rise. The journalist's photos? Framed in the study. Not a scandal. But sacrament. Decades turn whispered change. The aughts fading into memory like film burned in darkroom trays. Marin. A 45. Traced laugh lines in the bathroom mirror. Silver threading her brown waves. Eyes holding storms weathered to calm. Theo. Beside her. Painted her portrait anew. Not sleeping muse. But morning light. Coffee mug in hand. Lola at feet. The walk-up had grown. Nursery added via renovation. Walls pale blue waiting for tiny storms. Pregnancy came in spring. IVF a marathon of needles and hopes. Donor chosen from Theo's Austin kin. A cousin with green eyes like Riley's ghost. Ultrasounds hummed heartbeats. Tiny flutters that bound them tighter. Jade threw a shower in the brownstone courtyard. Streamers and rainbows. Games yielding diapers and onesies embroidered fierce. Auntie Jade reporting for mischief duty, she declared. Belly laugh echoing off brick. Whitaker voices spanned coasts now. Austin branch thriving under Elena's steel. Brooklyn hub mentoring a new gen. Marin stepped back from front lines. Consulting from home as belly swelled. Podcast episodes recorded in the nursery to be. Voice warm with impending motherhood. Sam relocated part-time. Vermont cabin traded for a village sublet. Her photography studio blooming beside Theo's. Full circle, she said over brunches at the Grey Dog. Platters of avocado toast shared. Ethan's wedding to Kai was a summer affair in the Hamptons. Invite extended with photo. Him beaming. Arm around Kai's waist. Ocean backdrop. Maren and Theo went. Lola in tow. The ceremony on dunes much like their own. Vows exchanged under gulls' cries. Ethan catching Maren's I do. A nod of mutual mending. Reception tents billowed white. Lobster rolls and string lights. Dances spilling onto sand. You look happy, Maren told him later. Over cake slices. He squeezed her hand. Takes one to know one. Birth came in October gale. Labor stretching through night into dawn. Theo's hand vice grip in the birthing suite at Mount Sinai. Riley Samara Hayes Whitaker arrived screaming. 7 pounds of fury and pink. Green eyes blinking at the world. Maren held her first. Chest aching full. Theo weeping beside. Our light, she whispered. And they named her for anchors. Riley's fire. Sam's steadiness. Hayes for legacy. Parenting unfolded raw. Sleepless nights with colic cries piercing 3 a.m. Dark. Theo pacing the nursery with rockabye in Spanish learned from her mother. Mornings of spills and giggles. Maren on maternity leave. Laptop forgotten for blocks-long stroller pushes to the park. Lila babysat for date nights. Italian in Little Italy. Hands reacquainting over tiramisu. Jade claimed godmother rights. Spoiling with board books of fierce girls. Her own partner. A chef named Tarek. Whipping up purees spice gentle. Challenges crept. Postpartum haze cloaking Maren in fog. Hormones a tide pulling doubt. Am I enough? She confessed one midnight feed. Riley nursing tiny fists clenched. Theo knelt. Forehead to hers. You're everything. We're the village. Therapy helped sessions with a queer counselor in Chelsea. Unpacking the fractures echoes. Rebuilding stronger. Fall deepen. Riley's first Halloween. Pumpkin patch in Queens. Theo carving jack-o'-lanterns while Maren chased tumbling leaves. Thanksgiving at the brownstone. Tables groaning under Elena's tamales. Jade's mac and cheese. Sam's cider glazed turkey. Stories circled. Riley's first word, Mama, pointed at Maren. Sparking Theo's mock pout. Winter holidays glittered. Tree in the living room strung with ornaments. Riley's from Theo's childhood. Maren's from Vermont visits. Christmas morning. Paper torn in frenzy. Riley cooing at blocks shaped like cameras and brushes. New Year's on the fire escape. Neighbors toasting below. Theo's arm around Maren's waist. Riley bundled asleep inside. Spring brought Riley's first steps. Wobbly toward the nursery mural Lila painted. Women warriors in watercolor. Hands extended welcome. Maren captured it on the Leica. Flash popping soft. Theo cheering from knees. Consultancy re-entry eased. Part-time hybrid. Elena's reports glowing. We're unstoppable. Summer road trip. Austin bound. Mustang loaded with car seats and coolers. Theo's family welcomed. Abuela's braiding Riley's wisps. Cousins barbecuing brisket under live oaks. Maren soaked it. The drawl wrapping like embrace. Riley's first Texas sunset painting her cheeks rose. Back east. Fall equinox marked 5 years married. Vow renewal intimate. Dunes again. Jade officiating anew. Still choose you, Theo said. Ring twisting fresh. Maren echoed. Wind and hair. Riley toddling at ankles. Challenges scaled. Funding dips in economic crunch. Layoffs looming. Maren rallied board. Pivoting to virtual workshops, global reach. Queer voices from Nairobi to Mexico City. A donor scandal rocked. Old conservative exposed in Me Too wave. Ties severed swift. Through it. Team bonded. Jade's humor glue. Winter 2035. Riley 3. Preschool debates. Progressive co-op in the village. Finger paints and fairy tales reimagined. Mornings rushed, Theo corralling curls. Maren packing snacks but joy in the chaos. Lola hurting with nudges. Ethan's call in February. Kai pregnant. Twins due summer. Uncle Ethan stocking up on cigars. He joked over video. Riley waving chubby hand. Maren smiled. The web of family expansive now. Spring bloom. Riley's birthday park picnic. Cake-smeared faces. Friends dotting blankets. Lila announced her gallery directorship. Reese beside beaming. Sam met someone, a bookseller named Nora. Gentle as pages. Summer heat. Family camping in the Adirondacks. Tents pitched lakeside. Fires crackling Esmeraldas. Riley chased fireflies. Theo teaching constellations. That's Cassiopeia. Warrior queen. Maren watched. Heart ledger balanced. Losses tallied. Gains infinite. Fall harvest. Consultancy's 10th. Gala at the Apollo. Legends honored. Audre Lorde holograms reciting. Jade keynoting fire. Donors swelled. Rivals respected. Winter solstice. Roof gathering groan. Elena's kids toddling. Tarek's feast steaming. Toast to endurance. Riley asleep on Maren's lap. Theo's hand warm cover. 50. Maren reflected in journal. The marriage envied was illusion. This life. Substance. Photos once scandal now story. Framed in Riley's room. Lessons in love's quiet thunder. Riley's laughter echoed through the brownstone like sunlight fracturing prisms. 5 now. With knees scabbed from playground conquests and questions that pierced like arrows. Mama Mar. Why do stars hide in day? Maren knelt to her level in the courtyard. Gravel biting palms. Tracing skyward. They're resting. Gathering light for us. Theo watched from the stoop. Sketchpad idle. Smile soft as the explanation. Whitaker voices crested waves. National expansion. Satellites in LA and Atlanta. Elena jetting between with policy blueprints. Maren mentored remotely. Voice memos laced with Riley's background babble. Kiddo. Mama's plotting world domination. The podcast evolved to video. Live streams from Pride parades in San Francisco. Drawing millions. Sponsors ethical flocking. Theo's career soared. Guggenheim Fellowship. Residency in Berlin painting divided walls. Berliner scars mirrored in oils thick as history. Maren joined for a month. Riley in backpack carrier. Navigating U-Bahn with toddler tantrums and bratwurst bribes. Gallery openings hummed multilingual. Theo's New York Exiles series. Figures bridging oceans. Critically lauded. Maren translating interviews. Pride swelling throat. Homecomings healed jet lag. Family dinners at the walk-up. Now expanded to 2-bed with garden plot where tomatoes blushed red. Jade and Tarek married in a rooftop affair. Harlem skyline witness. Their twins flower girls in Tool. Maren caught the bouquet accidental. Theo's wink promising nothing but now. Challenges brewed subtle. Riley's questions deepened. Why 2 mamas? Answered with books and honesty. But school's curriculum gaps frustrating. Marin advocated at PDA. Elena drafting inclusive writers. Victory small but seismic. Summer 2040. Family sabbatical in Montana. Cabin near glacier. Peaks jagged as resolve. Hikes revealed grisly prints. Riley's all wide-eyed. Evenings stargazing. Theo naming galaxies. Marin weaving Riley tales into constellations. A storm trapped them days. Board games and stories forging bonds tighter than ropes. Fall return. Ethan visit. Twins toddling. Kai corralling with calm. Park playdate. Swings creaking. Old fractures faint scars. Life's remix, he said. Pushing Riley higher. Laughter mingling. Winter holidays. Sam and Nora wed in Vermont chapel. Snow blanketing pews. Marin maid of honor. Toast to loves that linger. Riley ring bearer. Pillow dragging. Charm universal. Spring. Riley's kindergarten rite. Backpack slung. Nerves knotted. Marin and Theo tag team drop off. Kisses lingering curbside. She's got your fire, Theo said after. Hand squeeze. Summer arts camp for Riley. Finger paints to watercolors. Theo guest teaching. Pride in mini masterpieces. Consultancy crisis cyber hack. Donor data breached. Marin led recovery. Transparency manifesto quelling panic. Emerging stronger. Firewalls metaphor for guarded hearts. Fall equinox. Theo's MoMA retrospective. Decades distilled. Marin curating personal archive. Riley's Leica integrated. Bridges across time. Opening night gala. Riley in velvet. Whispering Mama's famous. Ethan gifted sculpture. Abstract unity. For the gallery of us. Winter solstice. Roof fire with kin. Elena's teens debating politics. Jade's stories spiced. Toast to 10 years post-wedding. Rings glinting. Riley 7. Questions philosophical. What if I love a girl like you love Mama T? Marin hugged fierce. Then we're lucky twice. Challenges crested. Theo's diagnosis early rheumatoid. Joints protesting brushes. Adaptation slow. Adaptive tools. Therapy pools. Marin's hands massaging ache. We'll paint with words if needed, she vowed. Theo's laugh defiant. Summer 2045. Family Oregon Coast Redux. Whales again. Riley sketching pods. Therapy breakthroughs. Theo's mobility aided. Spirit unbroken. Fall. Riley's school play lead in The Witch's Wardrobe, fierce as her namesake. Marin filmed. Tears blurring lens. Winter. Consultancy milestone. Nonprofit status. Impact report thick with lives touched. Gala virtual hybrid. Global cheers. Spring bloom. Riley's first crush, classmate Mia. Braids flying. Marin advised gentle. Theo baked cookies for Friendship Fort. Summer road trip Chicago. Art Institute wander. Riley awed by Hopper lonelinesses. Consultancy panel. Marin keynoting narratives as nets. Fall harvest. Ethan retirement. Apps sold. Philanthropy pivot. Visit with Kai. Twins teens now. Stories swapped over cider. Winter solstice. Family constellation fuller. Nora pregnant. Sam's joy radiant. At 55. Marin journaled. Envy once chained, now. Legacy freeze. Photos in Riley's room. Stories told at bedtime's love's arc. From hidden to hallowed. Riley at 10 navigated the world with a scientist's curiosity. Microscope kit dissecting courtyard ants. Questions evolving to ethics. If love's a choice, why fear it? Marin paused mid-chop for dinner stir-fry. Knife hovering over bell peppers. Fear guards the heart until trust teaches it to open. Theo. From the living room easel. Added pigments to a canvas of urban vines. Like roots finding light through concrete. Whitaker voices globalized. Partnerships in Toronto and Sydney. Elena CEO now. Marin's board chair emeritus. She lectured at university's NYU circles back. Ironic homecoming on storytelling as survival. Students hungry for blueprints. Theo's arthritis stabilized. A clinical trial easing grip. Brushes flowing freer. Collaborative book. Visual verses. Her illustrations to Marin's essays on queer resilience. Published by a feminist press imprint. Launches in Brooklyn bookstore packed cheek to jowl. Family dynamics shifted. Jade's twins off to college. Empty nest echoing her calls for advice. Motherhood's the long game, Marin counseled over wine. Tarek's kitchen her confessional. Summer 2050. Transatlantic. Family Paris. Riley devouring crepes and Louvre lions. Theo sketching Seine bridges. Marin tracing Hemingway haunts. Riley journaling in French phrases pilfered from apps. Fall return. Riley's bat mitzvah? No. Secular but ceremonial backyard gathering. Readings from Audre Lorde. Jade leading circle of intention. Gifts practical. Sam's camera upgrade. Elena's advocacy kit. Winter holidays. Ethan and Kai host Hamptons tradition borrowed. Fire pit tales of grandkids. Riley bonding with cousins over Esmeralda's science. Spring. Riley's first protest. Climate march down 5th. Sign futures queer and green. Marin marching beside. Pride in stride. Summer camp counselor gig. Riley at eco camp in the Catskills. Letters home freckled with lake mud. Marin and Theo reclaim date nights. Jazz at Blue Note. Hands class timeless. Fall equinox. Theo's TED Talk. Art as antidote, streamed worldwide. Riley beaming from front row. Q&A. A fan asks Marin post-talk. How'd the scandal shape you? It shattered the mask. Revealed the face. Winter solstice. Consultancy's 20th. Virtual gala with holograms of honorees. Riley Hayes ethereal narrator. Toast to endurance. Lila's speech. Marin built bridges from her breaks. Riley 12. Puberty's storms. Braces gleaming. Crushes confusing. Mia again? Theo teases gentle. Marin facilitating talks with therapists versed in queer youth. Challenges title. Economic dip. Funding freezes. Board pivots to endowments. Marin's networks weaving safety nets. Personal Theo's flare-up. Hospital nights. Riley's worry wide-eyed. Will weather, Marin assures. Family fort. Summer 2055. Montana Redux. Glacier trails tougher. Riley leading with Map app. Bonfire's birth stories Riley's turn. Fictional futures where she directs films of forgotten loves. Fall. Riley's school project. Documentary on Marin's scandal. Interviews with Ethan. Jake. Claire via Zoom reconciliation full. Premiere at Assembly. Applause thundering. Marin tearing up backstage. Winter. Sam's twins born. Riley big cousin. Vermont visits snowshoeing to frozen ponds. Spring bloom. Riley's track team. Sprinter speed. Marin timing laps. Theo cheering horse. Summer road trip southwest. Canyons echoing. Riley photographing petroglyphs. Echoes of Riley's lens. Fall harvest. Lila's retirement party. Gallery handover. Speeches salty sweet. Reese toasts to muses eternal. Winter solstice. Family video call global. Elena in Sydney. Jade in Harlem. All linked in light. 60. Marin reflects. Marriage's envy was fleeting fame. This tapestry. Enduring art. Photos evolve. Riley's editions. Digital overlays of futures imagined. Riley 18. Cap and gown crisp against June's sun. Valedictorian speech a clarion. Stories aren't scripts, they're sparks, ignite your own. Marin dabbed eyes from auditorium seats. Theo's hand vice in hers. Lola gray muzzled at home with sitter. Post-ceremony brunch at Balthazar, oysters and mimosas. Riley toasting to launches. NYU bound for film. Camera slung eternal. Whitaker voices legacy foundation now. Scholarships in Riley Hayes' name. Elena's daughter interning summers. Marin advisory. Memoirs and works. Unenvied truths. Ghosted by a village scribe. Theo's septuagenary exhibit. Lifelines. Veins of color tracing decades. MoMA retrospective redux. Riley curates youth section. Her shorts interwoven. Echoes. Animations of Marin's photos pulsing life. Family orbits widen. Jade's book tour. Twins graduated. Sam's Nora birthing third. Ethan's philanthropy gala. Kai's art foundation merging with Lila's legacy. Summer postgrad. Riley interns Berlin. Theo's old haunts. Vlogs homeward freckled with currywurst. Marin and Theo empty nest. Italy sojourn. Tuscany hills rolling wine dark. Hands reacquainting in olive groves. Fall freshman drop-off. Dorm unpacked. Hugs lingering Astor Place. Call weekly. Theo mandates. Marin slipping care package like a film. Theo's sketch. Winter holidays. Riley home. Tree trimming traditions. Her stories of dorm crushes boy. Girl. Fluid listened without lead. Spring break. Family New Orleans. Jazz funerals for lost loves. Riley filming second lines. Marin swaying to brass. Summer 2065. Riley's thesis film. Paused frames. Docu-fiction of Marin's arc. Premiering Tribeca, standing ovation. Ethan in audience. Tears tracking. Fall. Wedding bells. Riley and Alex, non-binary sound designer. Met in editing bay, engagement picnic Central Park. Rings forged from recycled silver. Planning cascade. Jade officiating. Elena venue scouting. Winter solstice. Rehearsal dinner brownstone. Toasts tumbling. Sam's cider flowing. Ceremony spring. Hudson overlook. Vows echoing waves. Your rhythm. My verse. Honeymoon Hawaii. Riley vlogging volcanoes. Marin and Theo grandparents? Not yet talks tentative. Summer grandbaby. Riley pregnant. Alex beaming ultrasounds. Marin knits booties. Theo sketches nursery murals. Fall harvest. Birth Jordan Hayes Alex. Cry shattering hospital hush. Marin holds first. Theo cooing. Cycle spins. Winter holidays. Jordan's first. Tree lights reflected in wide eyes. Family fuller. Challenges gentle now. Theo's hips ache. Knee replacement scheduled. Marin's vision blurs. Glasses thicker. But joys compound. Jordan's babbles. Riley's shortlisted Oscar nod. Summer 2070. Family Montana finale. Glacier goodbye. Riley leading great grand? No. Jordan strapped. Echoes layering. Fall equinox. Ethan's passing quiet heart. And sleep. Funeral Hamptons. Kai's eulogy grace. Marin toasting private. To the man who let me go. Winter. Consultancy Diamond Jubilee. Gala Apollo. Riley keynoting. Jordan toddling stage. Spring. Theo's memoir illustrations for Marin's book launch. Signing lines snaking. Fans sharing parallels. Summer road trip legacy. Southwest with Jordan. Canyons whispering ancestors. Fall. Jordan school play. Tiny witch. Marin filming. Tears tradition. Winter solstice. Roof under stars. Generations Jade's great nieces. Elena's lineage fireside stories. 70. Marin journals final. Envy was youth's illusion. Love. Elders' wisdom. Photos chronicle not scandal, but symphony. Riley's film wins. Acceptance speech. For the women who loved first, Grandma Marin. Oma Theo. World watches. Whispers shift to wonder. Legacy lingers. Foundations flourish. Stories seed new sparks. The marriage once envied? Footnote to freedom's epic.